Good morning, grandkids. Your friend Jeanine here. I thought I'd read you a book this morning if I can find one I enjoy. I wanted to look at these books down here. Fall from Glory. That doesn't look too interesting to me. I can't get my cursor down here on him. The Ransom of Zarek. Have I read that? No. I wonder who Zarek is. What have I got laying over here on this table? The Yellow Book of Riddles. No, I'm not interested. Let's find out who Zarek is, okay? The Ransom of Zarek, Ancient Tales of the Dwemer. Part 1. Uh-oh. Didn't say that on the book. I didn't know I was going to have to look for some more eventually. Let's see how this starts out. Salamiel stood in her garden and read the letter that her servant had brought to her. The bouquet of jasp roses in her hand fell to the ground. For a moment it was as if all birds had ceased to sing, and a cloud had passed over the sky. Her carefully cultivated and structured haven seemed to flood over with darkness. "We have thy son," it read. "We will be in touch with thee shortly with our ransom demands." Zarek had never made it as far as Agon after all. One of the brigands on the road, orcs probably, or a cursed Dunmer, must have seen his well-appointed carriage and taken him hostage. Jalamiel, or Alamiel, however you pronounce that, I don't know, clutched at a post for support, wondering if her boy had... Now, hold on a second, guys. I don't get this. At the beginning, it's... Oh, that's not an S up there in the beginning. It's a J. So sorry. Okay. Jalamiel clutched at a post for support, wondering if her boy had been hurt. He was but a student, not the sort to fight against well-armed men. But had they beaten him? It was more than a mother's heart could bear to imagine. "Don't tell me they sent the ransom note so quickly," called a family voice, and a familiar face appeared through the hedge. It was Zarek. Yamiel hurried to embrace her boy, tears running down her face. "What happened?" she cried. "I thought thou had been kidnapped." "I was," said Zarek. "3 huge soaring Nords attacked my carriage on the Fremborn Pass. Brothers, as I learned, named Matthias, Ullen, and Kurg. Thou shouldst have seen these men, mother. Each one of them would have had trouble fitting through the front door, I can tell thee." "What happened?" Jalamiel repeated. "Were thou rescued?" "Well, I thought about waiting for that, but I knew they'd send off a ransom note, and I know how thou dost worry. So I remembered what my mentor at Agon always said about remaining calm, observing thy surroundings, in looking for thy opponent's weakness. Zarek grinned. It took a while, though, because these fellows were truly monsters. And then, when I listened to them bragging to one another, I realized that vanity was their weakness. What did thou do? Well, they had me chained at their camp in the woods, not far from Kale. I don't know where Kale is or what it is. On a high knoll overlooking a wide river. I heard one of them, Kurg, telling the others that it would take the better part of an hour to swim across the river and back. They were nodding in agreement when I spoke up. I could swim that river and back in 30 minutes, I said. Impossible, said Kurg. I can swim faster than a little whelp like thee. So it was agreed that we would dive off the cliff, swim to the center island, and return. As we went to our respective rocks, Kurg took it upon himself to lecture me about all the fine points of swimming. The importance of synchronized movements of the arms and legs for maximum speed, how essential it was to breathe after only third or fourth stroke, not too often to slow myself down, but not too often to lose one's air. I nodded and agreed to all his fine points. Then we dove off the cliffs. I made it to the island and back in little over an hour, but Kurg never returned. He had dashed his brains at the rocks at the base of the cliff. I had noticed the telltale undulations of underwater rocks and had taken the diving rock on the right. But thou returned, asked Yamil, astounded. Was that not then when thou escaped? Oh, it was too risky to escape then, said Zarek. They would have easily caught me again, and I wasn't keen to be blamed for Kurg's disappearance. I said I did not know what happened to him, and after some searching, they decided he had forgotten about the race and had swum ashore to hunt for food. They could not see how I could have had anything to do with his disappearance, as fully visible as I was throughout my swim. The two brothers began making camp along the rocky cliff edge, picking an ideal location so that I would not be able to escape. One of the brothers, Matthias, began commenting on the quality of the soil and the gradual incline of the rock that circled around the bay below. Ideal, he said, for a foot race. I expressed my ignorance of the sport, and he was keen to give me details of the proper technique for running a race. He made absurd faces, showing how one must breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth, how to bend one's knees to the proper angle on the rise, the importance of sure foot placement. Most important, he explained, was that the runner keep an aggressive but not too strenuous pace if one intends to win. It is fine to run in second place through the race, he said, provided one has the willpower and strength to pull out in the end. I was an enthusiastic student, and Matthias decided that we ought to run a quick race around the edge of the bay before night fell. Ulan told us to bring back some firewood when we came back. We began at once, down the path skirting the cliff below. I followed his advice about breath, gait, and foot placement, but I ran with all my power, right from the start. Despite his much longer legs, I was a few paces ahead as we wound around the first corner. With his eyes on my back, Matthias did not see the gap in the rock that I jumped over. He plummeted over the cliff before he had a chance to cry out. I spent a few minutes gathering some twigs before I returned to Ullen at camp. Now thou wert just showing off, frowned Jalamiel. Surely that would have been a good time to escape. Well, thou might think so, agreed Zarek, but thou had to see the topography. A few large trees and then nothing but shrubs. Ullen would have noticed my absence and caught up with me in no time, and I would have had a hard time explaining Matthias's absence. However, the brief forage around the area allowed me to observe some of the trees close up, and I could formulate my final plan. When I got back to camp with a few twigs, I told Ullen that Matthias was slow coming along, dragging a large dead tree behind him. Ullen scoffed at his brother's strength, saying it would take him less time to pull up a live tree by the roots and drop it on the bonfire. I expressed reasonable doubt. I'll show thee, he said, ripping up a 10-foot-tall specimen effortlessly. But that's scarcely a sapling, I objected. I thought thou could rip up a tree. His eyes followed mine to a magnificent, heavy-looking one at the edge of the clearing. Ullen grabbed it and began to shake it with a tremendous force to loosen its roots from the dirt. With that, he loosened the hive from the uppermost branches, dropping it down onto his head. That was when I made my escape, Mother, said Zarek, in conclusion, showing a little schoolboy pride. While Mathis and Kurk were at the base of the cliff, and Ullen was flailing about engulfed by a swarm. Jalamiel embraced her son once again. Publisher's note. I was reluctant to publish the works of Marabar Saul, but when the University of Wayland Press asked me to edit this edition, I decided to use this as an opportunity to set the record straight once and for all. Scholars do not agree on the exact date of Marabar Saul's work, but it is generally greatly agreed that they were written by the playwright Gore Phelim, famous for popular comedies and romances during the interregnum, I don't know what that means, between the fall of the First Cyrodiilic Empire and the rise of Tiber Septim. The current theory holds that Phelim ordered a new genuine Dwemer tales and adopted them to the stage in order to make. I don't know what this has got to do with the story that I just read. In any case, the Dwemer in most of the tales of Marabar Saul bear little resemblance to the fearsome, unfathomable race that frightened even the Dunmer Nords and Redguards into submission and built ruins that even now have yet to be understood. What has that got to do with the story that I read? Why did it go into a publisher's note that I seem to not understand having anything to do with the story I just read? All right, grandkids, that's it. I read that story to you, and the second half of the book just doesn't seem to belong with the first half, as far as I can tell. If you see any better reasoning to that, let me know. Anyway, I'll see you later, kids. Maybe I can find a more appropriate book next time. Bye-bye for now, grandkids.